You are now tuned to BS3. You are now tuned to BS3 Network.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Perspective. We're going to have a good show tonight, and we have guests. I'll just say it because we have some little marketing out there, and there might be some technical difficulties. So if somebody pop in later or during the conversation, you won't be shocked and surprised. So that'll be happening. With that being said, we'll open up the show as we always do, just welcoming everyone. We appreciate you being a part of the show. And as we always say, the premise of our platform, our program and show is right there in the name, Perspective. This is a safe place, a free place where we want to share different opinions, points of views, lived experiences, knowledge that we may have, because even though they may differ, and that's the key. We want to be able to have those conversations, even if we have a different point of view, different view. Because the only thing that they are different. And whenever you can talk about differences, what that's going to do is create a level of understanding. And when you have understanding, you come closer together. And that's what we really want to have at the end of the day. With that being said, I'll just do a quick introduction of myself. I am Eric Butler, a.k.a. The Intellect, a.k.a. The Atlantic, because I'm cold, deep, and choppy, a.k.a. Cullinan, because I'm the biggest diamond ever found on land. I'm 3,000 plus carats, y'all. And so with that being said, I'm just, I would say I'm a Renaissance man. You know, I have a background in talent acquisitions. I'm in the community. I sit on the advisory board for a nonprofit called The Empower Series. Definitely jump out there on YouTube, look up The Empower Series, subscribe, like, and share. It's a financial literacy program, as I said, and there's a lot of information out there that you would like to review. Can't get enough of that financial literacy stuff. Also, other than that, I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, and man, I'm a black man. So I'm forced to learn, adapt, and adjust and fly. So with that, I'll pass it over to my co-host, and I like to call her Doc.
Hi, thank you all so much for being here. My name is Latoya, aka Doc, aka Latoya the therapist, aka his wife, they mama. I am a licensed professional counselor and an author. And I'm excited tonight to get into tonight's topic. It's going to be pretty good. We got some guests, right?
Yes, we do. Man, we have esteemed guests.
Dude, we got my good sis in the building, and I'm super excited to have her here. We got Miss Mika Baldwin. We're gonna let her introduce herself, but here she is. Hi.
Absolutely. Listen, I just want to tell y'all, Mika is a superstar. Y'all can't say nothing bad about her. If you fight her, you got to fight me. That's where she at with me right now.
Eric, you better tell him because.
Okay, I'm going to tell him, listen. So, you know, they say in the midnight hour, I'm talking about in no time, like with no time. I call Mika. Mika, would you be upset with me if you jumped on the show right now? And she was like, oh, yeah, I would be. And in her most calm voice, oh, yeah, I would be extremely upset. I said, well, go ahead and be upset. Go ahead and I need you. She was like, okay, I'll do it for you. So, man, she good with me, y'all. I'm in the category. So, Mika, thank you. Mika is one of the queens on Queen 3 and King podcast. It's one of the one of the pillars of BS3 network, if you ask me. And she is on one of the co-hosts on that show. She's outstanding, and so I'm really, really happy that she jumped up, did it like a queen does. Come through when you got to come through, and is going to help us out and join the show today.
I had to take that Neutrogena off my face when Eric called.
We appreciate you, sis.
She'll warm up here in a minute, y'all. She'll warm up. So I appreciate it so much.
I got you,
And
sis.
then our next guest, this is someone that I respect quite a bit. This is Mr. Justin Caraway. Mr. Justin Caraway. We've worked together in the past within the financial industry. He is the co-host of Elevate. Comes on Thursday. It's at 7:00. And he's someone that I know is going to give honest, true perspective, no pun intended. Well, okay, yeah, maybe a little bit on any topic that you're going to discuss. Knowledgeable individual, strong individual, someone that, as a Black man, we all can be proud of. So, Mr. Justin Caraway.
Well, I appreciate that introduction, and I'm really looking forward.
Absolutely.
No, I just appreciate the introduction. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Seriously,
I see what I'm talking about, y'all. He already like, okay. So if you hadn't read it already, you don't know. The topic for today is, what is toxic masculinity? Is it even real? And before we get too deep into it, so I want to give all our viewers, take a moment, think about it. Think about what toxic masculinity is to you, because that's going to be one of my first questions. But I definitely want to take the time to give a salute to Ben Sutterick III. If you haven't noticed, that BS3, he puts the BS3 in the network. We want to let everyone know you can support BS3 network by sending stars. Stars help us earn money to continue building the network. So we really thank you. And I know he thanks you. And I just want to, I always like to add, man, it's definitely worth it, man. Go in there, share some stars. This is a network that you want to see. You want to see growth, you want to see expand, and I'm telling you, the effort and the resources are being put into that effort directly. So thank you, Ben. All right. Yeah, sounds like we got a little echoing, so hopefully that'll straighten up here. I want to ask. When we talk about, the easy question is, what is toxic masculinity? But my co-host said, well, Eric, let's define this. What is masculinity? I thought it was kind of ingenious, because I'm like, okay, base root word, action, I like it, and I understand it. So we need to define that. So we're going to go through some definitions about toxic masculinity, but the question of the hour, and so what would you define masculinity to be? Ladies first.
We'll let our guests go first.
So that would be Mika.
No, y'all just caught me off guard. Doc, can you go first? Let me catch up.
We did do that.
Masculinity, I would say, are like characteristics or things that you say define manhood, or like men or boys. That's what I would say masculinity is.
Okay. So I ain't gonna put Mika on the spot. Justin, what in your mind, when you think of what masculinity is, what comes to mind?
so for me, I agree with Doc. I think what it is what defines a man, what defines a boy. Really, what's opposite of a female to me is masculinity.
I'll say, whenever masculinity comes up, strength, fortitude, logic, sacrifice. Those are kind of the words that immediately pop into my mind. Bravery. And yeah, those are the words. And when I think of masculinity, that's what I think of. I think I'm describing some of the influential men in my life. If I think about it a little deeper. So when we talk about that, it throws a wrench, in my opinion, when we're talking about toxic masculinity. So what is your definition of toxic masculinity?
Who wants to go first?
I think it's something that diminishes what a woman does in a household, or who a woman is in a household. So, because when you speak of masculinity, you think of leadership, you think of sacrifice, you think of protection, you think of provider. But I think the opposite of that is making sure the woman knows that you're those things, and kind of plays against the woman if she doesn't provide, if she doesn't go with that.
No, I like it because no, I think it's because not giving the text or academic definition first. I wanted to go this route to kind of get at least just a synopsis that when you hear about masculinity, what the definition is, and when you think about toxic masculinity, then what's in the idea of the masses? Because I promise we all represent a certain demographic of the masses. So thank you, Mika. When you think of toxic masculinity, what about you, Justin?
I'm answering the question. I don't think that it exists, to be quite honest with you. I think that, on both sides of the gender, you have, a-holes and people that are not. It's just that simple. Some of the things that you see in today's society where they're labeling man as, oh, that's toxic masculinity. No, that's just him being an ass. And I think that we have moved away from that, and we're making it easier for people to use that, not just women, but men as well. We're making it easier for people to use that as an excuse to label someone.
Doc?
So I had my answer all together, but now I think I'm leaning more toward what he's saying. But if he hadn't went first, I would say toxic masculinity is super aggressive behavior, using violence under the guise of saying like, oh, boys will be boys or things like that. I think it's when men suppress their emotions and then they act out violently. That's what would come to my mind first.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting to get from Doc, because that was very concise. I thought we'd be boxing with her a little bit. Honestly, before this topic and before digging into it and looking at that, my immediate thought was right in line with Justin's. I always had a premise of like, man, that's a made up that feminists will use to just demean, diminish, and try to destroy the natural, I would say, Yah-given responsibilities that men have been designed and instructed to carry out. So I thought my mindset was toxic masculinity, protection, provision, sacrifice. Those are not things that can be toxic.
Well, hold on. Can we define toxic? Because I think so. When Justin said it, it was cool, but when you said it, it kind of like it was kind of throwing me a little bit, because no, protection, provide, and provision, that's not toxic. But if because I'm providing for you, I get aggressive or I start to demean what you're doing, that is toxic. If because you're bigger and stronger and you get like you make the money and you got the muscle, you start handling me, that is toxic.
Right.
But every time something happens, you say, well, I protect, I provide, I'm this, I'm that, and you throw it in my face. That's toxic.
Yeah, I mean, but that's just being an a-hole. Like Justin said, those are just a-hole people. You know what I'm talking about? So,
but do you think that they would be a-hole people if it weren't for their definition of masculinity?
Right.
Well, that's a valid point. And if any man that come across me, they wouldn't function in that way. But I don't run across many of them because birds are flock together, and they can't fly with me. So, with that being said, but of course, I've been in groups, been in environments where that was the case. I've seen that type of attitude and the violent tendencies, overbearing nature within my own personal sphere, in my upbringing. Not my father, I would never do his name like that. But you know, stepdads or whatever the case may be that my mother dated. So to me, I think if you take toxic and put it in front of masculinity, you really devalue men across the board. And it's significant enough to me that you can't just lump in men that are stern, that are logical, that are disciplined and structured in the way that they manage their lives, and those who are up under their protection, who they're providing for, who they're problem solving for, and then who they're responsible for ultimately.
They got to be stern with their wife, though. Like, is that a thing?
Absolutely.
Ooh, I'm glad I'm already married, because no.
Now, I think that it's a bad rap.
Let me say this. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Justin. No, go ahead, Justin.
No, I was just saying. I think that it gets a bad rap when we say being stern, right? Like that doesn't necessarily mean I'm scolding you or I'm yelling at you. It just means I have a principle and I have to adhere to that principle, and I expect for not just my wife, but it could be kids. I expect for my family. And you're a part of this family, so I expect us all to fall in line with that and move to that code, right? So, it's trigger words is what I like to call them. So when you use like toxic masculinity or you got to be stern, like most people hear that and they think, you're being mean. That's really what people define stern as. Like, you're just deliberate and you're being mean, right? Instead of really understanding what it is that a man, because we're taught that early, you got to lead, you got to provide, whatever. So when he's demonstrating that or trying to, show you that he can lead or he's these things, are you making it in the wrong context? Is that a conversation that you're having with him to say, hey, I get it, I understand. Let's have a conversation, have dialogue to get to a better understanding, but also knowing and understanding where he's coming from and his perception and perspective on things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Justin said it perfectly, because what I was just about to share is that just using the word stern, like stern. Yeah, but your yes, let your yes be yes, let your no be no. So you can't have someone who would be stern in your protection, stern in being disciplined, and stern in making decisions to make sure that you're in the right place, that no one's taking advantage of you. Then also in the house, if you may disagree on something, somebody has to make a decision. We have to come to a conclusion, right? So that compromise may be, okay, I'm going to go with my husband. I don't have a better response. I don't have a better answer. I don't know about that one. So I'll lean on, I'm going to trust his judgment in certain circumstances. Because I could be stern on something because I'm confident in it. But in the next turn, I may look to my significant other and say, you know what, I hadn't had an experience in that. The feedback I've gotten, I'm gonna trust. How about yourself? And if you say, no, I've done this before, I have this experience with it, and I think this is good, then I'm going to consider that, and that may be the route we take.
Well, I think stern might be a trigger word for me, kind of like mandatory, because when you say stern, I'm like, what are we talking about? But at my home, my husband is the king of the castle, like he gets the final say. But my word is like, this is word, my word, like right here. Like, what's up? I have thoughts. I have things to say. So when you say stern, I'm like,
I get it.
So,
I think people because sometimes stern can be up there with toxic. I'm with Doc. So you just have to watch the words that you say. Because even in my family, Justin is my first cousin. And some people, y'all can cuss me out in the comments, I'll take it. But when my cousins, my brother, our uncles, our daddy, when they speak, that's it. It's not toxic, but it is what it is.
I love it. I knew it was a reason. Me and Justin, before we even got on this side of the bridge, we was all right. We was all right. It's just something. It's something, certain spirits. But anyway, no. So we're gonna transition. So that's great. Thank you all for kind of sharing your intrinsic thought on what toxic masculinity is. Because it kind of, as I went through this, it kind of led to an understanding that I'm like, okay, man, it was some light bulb moments for me in that in looking at it, because I thought that's what it was. But so the definition of toxic masculinity, we would say in academia, so to speak, is, did I go silent, y'all?
We got you.
Okay, got you. The definition of toxic masculinity is it refers to a set of harmful and restrictive social norms that place undue pressure on men to conform to a narrow definition of masculinity. Now tell me if you didn't get it right away on the first roll. No, come on now. We can't have it. What everybody got quiet.
I mean, I got it. You said if you can get it, I got it.
So because Mika kind of was like, well, I know she just had to chew on it for a second, because they're saying toxic masculinity is a harmful and restrictive social norm. That was one thing that popped out. And then it places undue pressure on men to conform to a narrowed definition of masculinity. So I'm going to say it in not Butler terms, but Butler. I'm going to speak it like the Atlantic. He's like, oh, so it's just forcing you to act like the most barbaric portions of manhood, and that there's a social expectation for a man to be, I eat meat, I'm caveman, I beat up everybody, and you have no sensitivity. And then even more so that you don't engage in your sensitivity. So those natural things in the community, like men don't cry, you don't share your emotions.
Yeah.
You can't be soft. Your leg cut off, you rub some tussin on it and get on back out there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So just for men to operate and move in that space. And that's what toxic masculinity is, which I was like, that's much different than what I thought. But the key element is that's not how it's used by our wonderful, esteemed counterparts.
Yeah, I think a lot of words are misused though. Like I think narcissist is one that everybody keeps saying.
Look at that word.
Is one I think a lot of words aren't used properly. And my personal worst favorite is trauma bonding. Like I feel like people hear things and they think they know what it means, and so everything they see, they throwing it out. It's like when you first learn about a concept, so then everything looks like the concept that you just learned about. That's what it is. But they just read the top of the article. They didn't read the whole article. Those people who read the table of contents and then they think they got it. That's what's happening.
Is that even a thing? I didn't even know that was possible. Come on, that's because if you don't read, like, I don't trust anything that I read. I got to go hunt and search, and then I have to have a real world example of it going down. Otherwise, I'm just not going to take it with it. I'm just not going to take that and run with that flag.
Well, that's you.
Yeah, early life has taught me that, man, you'll run and be like, God dang, because I know I would have got an A in science, but Pluto is really not a damn planet, and we come to find that out years later that it's some frozen moon of another galaxy. I was like, oh, really?
Then we have nothing to science grade.
I'm using that example. Like some stuff be wrong, so I got to go test it out a little bit. Okay. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
But
we gotta set
you
up,
know,
we gotta
one thing
go ahead.
that I'm finding out, you know, within my own personal life is we always are taught that experience is the best teacher, right? But to me, I think that that's foul because experience costs you time, and that's one thing as we continue to progress in life and get older and have more experiences, the time that it costs you holds you back from really elevating or being able to avoid certain things in life, avoid certain mistakes, avoid certain, you know, certain things, right? So I hear you when you're saying, like, you know, from experience and being able to, me personally, I'm the youngest of 7 kids. So I had a lot of siblings that I can look at their experience and learn from and know, like, okay, that may not be the route to take, or that may not be the best decision to make, right? And coming from such a large family, I know Mika can speak to this as well. Like, we have examples of what to do and what not to do. And I think we all do in our childhood, even in our adulthood, we all have examples. I think that we should be focusing more on learning from the examples than really pushing people towards the experience side of things, right?
No, I wouldn't argue with that. And maybe experience it is not the right word, because I definitely utilize, um, you know, if I see something like, okay, crack is not good for you. Look at the results, you know. So I didn't say, well, let me try. So I definitely can identify with that. You made a key statement. You said you're the youngest of 7. I'm the oldest of 1. So so in some spaces it was really by trial and error. Now, and when I'm talking about information and things that we do at this point in life, like when I was young, I didn't think in that format that, hey man, I'm not trusting nothing nobody say. But I definitely learned, because there were times when I say I'm not trusting what they say, and then I come to learn on the hindsight. So I'm more apt to listen, which is why like even perspective. I want to hear other people's view, their lived experiences, their knowledge, what they've learned, and we definitely expand off of that. So I definitely agree. So we have some questions we're going to go through, and we're just about at the half hour. But is there any other comments before we go into these questions? Is there any other comments or feedback?
I can't see the comments this week.
Yeah.
So if you see them, you got to pop them up.
Man, I hadn't seen any come up. That's the thing.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I know it's some type of disconnect that's probably going on. And I'm hoping that everything is out there like it's supposed to be. So let me ask this. What are some of the, what would you say some of the social factors that contribute to the development and the perpetuation of toxic masculinity as we know it to be now?
So I would say going with toxic masculinity is a real thing. I would say the biggest thing that contributes to it is not allowing little boys to express their feelings. Now, I'm not saying that they gotta cry and whine, and I'm not saying that. I'm saying if they have an emotion, they needs to be able to express it, and express it in a way that is healthy for them and the people around them. So I would say that emotion suppression, where it's like, oh, you a boy, stop all that crying. He can cry. He good. It's all right. Like, he's not gonna not be a boy because he's crying. So that would be the thing that I see.
Anybody else?
Social media. The influence of social media, for sure.
Social media.
Like Doc said, you know, we get influenced about what we see, what other people are doing, what other boys are doing, or what other males are doing, and we think it's right. Just because it's popular doesn't mean it's right. So I think we get influenced about what's popular at times, about what we should be doing, how we should be acting, what toxic masculinity does look like in our opinion. I think that influences us.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was very powerful what you said. But I would take it a step further too. I would say the whole notion of council culture, when that was really going around. If you notice, it seemed like toxic masculinity really took off with COVID hit. To be quite honest with you, that's when I started hearing a lot of people drop that and use those terms, and it just seemed to be something that was, Tamika's point, social media seemed to be like a fad or fade that was going on, and that's why I say it's not real. That's just my personal opinion, though.
Yeah, I would definitely if I would add into that because I have a hard time because I feel like those aspects of being a little more, I think men do have a responsibility to be a little more stoic, a little more less emotional and rational, because that's kind of a design. And your most vulnerable and learning years are your early years. So I wouldn't say tell, not a very young child that they can't cry or they can't express their feelings. I think that's very important, but it definitely needs to be balanced. And like, I love the word balance. Balance is key in everything, because we already know by reality alone, you're going to have to face things that you don't want to face. You're going to have a control of your emotions, where you have to step into things, be something, a protector, most importantly. And that's going to take you having a different outlook on circumstances. Something goes wrong, it can't be, well, I don't know what to do. And because you've been allowed to just delve deeply into those levels of emotion, and I think social media is definitely, and I would just say society, I would say media as a whole, because right now we have a very big push on this topic right here. Toxic masculinity is actually bleeding in to just destroying what is the normal, necessary, needed masculinity that should be in a certain demographic of the community.
But I think so. I disagree. I think masculinity is absolutely needed. Like, I need you to be a man's man. I need you to fix things. I need you to take the trash. Like, I need all of that. All of that. But the toxic is what makes it a problem. And I think we keep trying to like skate by that. Like, if you're being so much of a man that I'm afraid of you, you have a problem. If you are using your manly strength to intimidate me or to be violent with me, we have a problem. Not protect and provide and provision. Do those things. We absolutely need that. But I don't need you to be so out of touch with your emotions that you one day spaz out because nobody ever told you it was okay to not be okay. And so I'm never saying, and I have boys, so I speak for my boys. I'm never saying, just cry and feel all your feelings and we good. No, I'm absolutely saying it's okay for you to cry, but then what's the next step? What is the solution? How do you control yourself so that you don't explode and punch your little brother in the face? Right? That's what I'm saying. I don't think that masculinity needs to go away. I love it, but it just can't be toxic.
And I'm with Doc. I love masculinity. Don't come around here all that extra woo. You got to be on my shoulder. I'm a crier. No, we're not about to be on each other's shoulder now. But I think the definition left out. I kind of did like this because it left out how does it make your woman feel? Like, if it's toxic masculinity, how does it make a woman feel? And one of the key words it did leave out, the doctor said, is it intimidating? Like, I don't want to be intimidated and I don't want to be scared when I'm coming to the house. And I think if it's toxic, it's going to be intimidating and I'm going to be a little shaken when I come into the house.
I think that honestly, for the most part, women know men's body language. And I think that a woman can read a man's body language when it's, okay, this guy, is about to explode, or this guy, I may have pushed it and took it too far, right? So for me, although I agree with you ladies, and I think masculinity is very important. I mean, I'm raising 2 boys myself, and I feel like it's super important that I let them see me be vulnerable, whether that's me being in my feelings or my emotions and expressing that to them, or just giving them that outlet of knowing, hey, I can go to dad. He won't be, too hard on things. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we said earlier, it's creating that standard and letting them understand and see that, hey, this is the standard. I need to make sure that I'm holding myself accountable to that standard so you can fall in line and follow suit. So for me, I think that, whenever we're saying toxic, like I said, it's just simple. You got a-holes in the world and you don't have a-holes. And it just so happens that the ones that get labeled, that's what they are, just complete a-holes. And to Eric's point, we don't hang with those type of cats because they couldn't be around us. Because if you're an a-hole, you're gonna be an a-hole, period. Whether it's with me, whether it's with a woman, you're gonna try to pull certain things, and I'm gonna have to pull your coattail to let you know, hey, that ain't what it is, that ain't cool. And if we fall out, we fall over it. But for the most part, that's just where I'm at with things.
No, I'll tell a quick story because I love the conversation because it's really delved into some of the questions, like thinking about what can we do to debunk that. So you can be thinking about that. But I had an incident where I'm in a very prestigious, one of a kind, elite fraternity. It's really, I'm just saying, we just set apart. And we were hosting, this was years ago. So we were hosting a party. Young lady comes running in. She running. Now I'm talking about a full sprint. Guy come behind her, chasing her. Stop him. I had to stop him because I don't know what he was going to do to her. But he's like, man, he told me what he did. I was like, yeah, I'd want to put my hands on it too. Like, it was really bad. It wasn't something simple. This wasn't a irrational, unrational individual. And I told him, I said, I know, man. I said, and she probably deserved it. I said, but I can't let you do it in front of me. You're going to catch on your own. I can't do it. It ain't even in me to do it. You know what I mean? But and then here's the key part of that story. She sees this, and she over my shoulder, and she started talking noise. As soon as she opened up her mouth, I said, "Shut up." Yeah, I don't know why I had to demonstrate it. I told her, I say, "Shut up." Before I let him get on you. Now, the best thing she did was shut up, because I definitely would have been like, "Go right ahead." So I definitely want to know, what are y'all reactions to that circumstance? Was I right or wrong for talking to her that way? Was him like, she didn't, she stole my money or did something like this? Because I think this gentleman was in the Air Force. She's just a local girl, and she didn't hustle and did something really bad that like put his career and stuff at jeopardy. And I know it had something to do with finances. So is he toxic now? Is he supposed to just take that like a G? Or was her actions more toxic?
Why don't she sounds toxic too? I mean, I don't know specifically what she did. She sounds a hot mess, especially to then see you protect her and then want to get the yapping. Like, I hate that. Like, why are you trying to rile this man up? If he slapped you one time, you might be asleep. Like, don't do that. So I don't know that either of them were acting appropriately.
And see, that I think that's the thing when we talk about toxic masculinity, because I think even that term comes up because men are just, we talk about them delving into their emotions. We want them to be more in tune. But if you're just generally not soft, if if you give me a certain type of energy and I return that type of energy, now I'm toxic, or I'm violent, or I'm unhinged, and it's because I've suppressed all my emotions all this time. It's like, no, you slap me. You know what I mean? You slap me, or you just in a video I saw, you didn't pay the mortgage for the last 6 months, and we're getting evicted, and I'm just now finding out. Like these are things that happen to me, and so how now? One, I ain't gonna be putting myself in a position where my damn mortgage, I don't know if it been paid in 6 months to get put out, but this happens.
But that brings me to question.
So what's really toxic? So what's really toxic? And I'm really trying to sail on what Justin is saying. I don't think toxic is, I think it's a trigger word used by a certain side of the argument to create or to demean just masculinity in general. Yes, no, maybe.
That brings me to question.
No,
Is being toxic
go ahead, Mika.
situational?
Okay,
that's a great question.
Or
because to me, either it's a one thing or it can't be situational. It's as Justin kind of mentioned, you maybe not handling a situation. Because I've been in that situation where something equating to you walk in and it's and a dude answer your girl door. So what you gonna do now? If you ain't got control of your emotions, now let me clear myself before we go too further.
Right.
I just simply, okay, decisions were made. I just left. You know what I'm saying? Out of that situation. But I know some cats, and we've heard people that walked in. We just had recently a woman came, her man told her, "Hey, I'm in love with someone else." So she pulled a gun and killed him, and you can see the woman running out of the house on somebody's Ring doorbell, running out of car, running for her life. So is there really such a thing as toxic masculinity, or is it just everything?
That's toxic behavior?
Go ahead, Mika.
To me, that's not toxic.
So how would you?
Why you say that's not toxic?
To me, that's someone snapping in a situation. I think it's a huge difference. Like if you snap versus, and neither one are good. Okay, that's what I want to. Neither one are good. But if I think toxic is ongoing. I think a situation is when you're, you become toxic in a situation based upon what has happened, based upon the scenario that's been presented to you, based upon something that your partner has done. Neither is good, like I said, but I don't know if one is toxic versus snapping.
I think so. I think I get what you're saying. I think you saying toxic is like this is what you do. This is who you are. Yes. Snapping is the circumstances was out of control and I snapped. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, because I think even from the definition, toxic masculinity seems to me like an ongoing thing, not a one incident thing.
But once again, that's just like I was saying earlier. It's just an excuse. It's just a word that people throw out there, and it's toxic masculinity. They're talking about men in general, trying to say that we're toxic or there's too much masculinity that a man possesses or has, and it's just it's crazy. Like Eric just gave the example. A man goes and tells a woman, "Hey, I'm in love with another woman." And she goes and kills him, and we're going to say that's just snapping. That's not toxic. There's something clearly wrong with this woman where there's a sense of dependency of this man or of this relationship that is toxic. That's just, pushes someone to that extreme level of violence of I want to take your life and then take mine as well because you no longer want to be with me. Now, if a man were to do that, we'll be looking and saying that this man was crazy. It was toxic masculinity. Or to your story, Eric, I mean, the guy chasing after a woman. And yet, once she felt like she had masculinity around her that could protect her, she does this. Yeah, no, absolutely not. So it has to be toxic people. I hate that we categorize it as toxic masculinity. There's toxic people, period.
Yeah,
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I
So-
agree. But I agree. But like you, if somebody just snaps and they've never been toxic before, they can snap. Like I said, they just snap. But I believe, like you said, there are toxic people. Period. And if they get into a situation, to me, a toxic person is going to show that they're toxic before. They've cussed you out. They've did something to you. They've tried to hit you with a car. They've tried to do this. They've tried to. You've seen toxic traits.
Yeah, but I think toxic, and that's really the argument. I don't think you can really have a term of toxic masculinity. Because as soon as you do that, anyone who has masculine tendencies and they stand on those principles, they stand on their values, it's easily just called toxic. You know what I mean? Instead of saying, man, that
Like, how are they standing on it though? Like, because I believe my shirt is black.
Like if I say
I'm standing on the fact that my shirt is black, that doesn't make me toxic. So the question that I have for you is, what you're saying that people are using toxic masculinity to devalue masculinity, right? That's what you're saying. But when somebody stands on their word, if they're not being aggressive, why would that be toxic? You're saying the first time somebody get a little bit stern is toxic. That's not toxic.
You're right. You're right, Doc. And that's exactly right. But that is what's happening. And that's how it's discussed. And that's how it's taught. I mean, I've witnessed and heard this being done. If you go on social media, YouTube, you know, everyone has their particular, you know, the manosphere, I guess, is what they call it. They have their talking points, but you have other prominent speakers, female, feminist, that just talk about just the everyday elements of men walking like, hey, I am a protector, I am a provider, I am the head of my home, and I'm going to manage it by the best way that I know how. And by doing that, they would be described as toxic. That their attitude and their approach is toxic. My grandfather, I didn't sit at the table and my grandmother be talking about something. And my grandfather would just turn and say, "Hush, woman." That's probably where I got it from when I told that girl to hush. And it's something that my cousins, we would joke about that. And that was an ideal and an example of manhood. My grandfather was a hard man. He wasn't very loving and hugging or whatever, but we all loved him to death. And the thing was, I know that my grandmother loved him. And because when she even had dementia, I mean, at 94, and didn't remember who I was, I said, well, she said, I don't know you. I said, yeah, you do. I'm your grandson. And I said, and Grady Roberts, that's my granddad. She looked at me all surprised. She said, you know my husband? She don't remember nobody else, but she remembered him. Now, of course, that's the longevity, but I've seen how my grandmother responded to my grandfather, how she spoke of my grandfather. And many would consider him a hard man, and they would describe that as toxic. And I think it's just become really rampant. And so that's why the question is like, is toxic masculinity even real? But we have to think about the clinical or psychological definition of it is the expectation of men to be a certain way. And I think just to not be in tune with their emotions, if I say it in the most simple way. And that's
the comments popping now.
That's the problem, in my opinion. Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah. Do the comments.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, and let's say to our viewers, the comments were not coming through earlier. They weren't, and they just now are coming through. So we weren't ignoring you. We apologize about that. So that's not in our control. Shah Camille said toxic masculinity equates consistency. which I think Mika mentioned, her prior behavior didn't show consistency. Okay. I think she's referring to the shooting example we used. Facebook user says, but men will call women masculine when we do those same things. And she said, yes, Jillian. Facebook user says, independence is deemed masculine when women operate in it. The word masculine is essentially a trigger word used for women. Toxic masculinity is a trigger word used for women.
Mm.
And then Camille says, masculinity doesn't equal male born. Men and women can both possess masculine.
I like
Oh, never mind. Okay.
Okay. Any feedback on that?
I mean, I think that was just to the point earlier. I mean, you just got people out in the world that are just a-hole people, and it usually takes that experience that you gave that young lady by telling her to be quiet and allowing her to feel protected, and also you actually stepping in to save that man from making. Those are life lessons that people should learn from. And I'm hoping that the young lady, whatever it is that she did, I hope that she learned from that. It will no longer make that mistake again, because those are the type of mistakes that cost people their lives.
Absolutely. No, I mean, no, it's, yeah, that's a whole nother show. Yeah, you know, and I think Justin and I probably be. No, I wouldn't say that, because I've seen the co-signing of women that I've seen friends co-sign other women on behaviors that would instigate, antagonize a man and put him in that position. And then if he does respond, or his cup does get full, and he may respond aggressively, speak aggressively, he's automatically deemed to be toxic and violent. And I speak from firsthand experience on that one, just being provoked. Like I literally, I was like, and I don't know, this was a certain, I said, you trying to kill me. And I meant that not like you trying to kill me with a gun or anything, but like you want me to do something to you, because for you to go to do what you're doing, you want me to hurt you. I said, you trying to kill me. Mm-hmm. You trying to kill me. So, you know, of course, my younger years, because I avoid that. Like, man, my radar go up. I'll be like, oh, no, you good. You stay by your lonesome. But I think the last, or the most poignant thing is I want to attack even the term and the thought of the women using toxic masculinity in the wrong context.
Yes.
So hopefully there's some extrapolating of what really masculinity is. So as we move into the last portion, or last few minutes of the show, to like reiterate those elements of masculinity so that they don't get confused. And I hate the fact they use toxic, because I think it's like Justice said, people being a-holes, people not having emotional, a low EQ. Because I don't think violence is ever the key, man. If I can't get you to fall in line, I'm leaving. Okay, bye. Because I can't put my hands on you. You know what I'm saying? If you gotta beat them, you need to leave them. Can we get that put on a shirt? If you gotta beat them, you need to leave them. You know what I mean? So, and that go for men and women. That. You know what I'm talking about?
And that's coming from a former college football player to say violence is never the answer. No CTE damage on you, sir.
Hey, no, I mean, that's in and out of relationships, and that's not just woman to man, but that's man to man, woman to woman. You know, I don't understand I just don't like putting people in the box. So men and that element, and I think now let me ask this question. This will round us out. do you think the attack on masculinity, and yes, there is an attack on masculinity, what impact has it had on our communities and our society as a whole?
Ooh,
That's good.
honestly, I honestly feel like we're seeing that in today's society. You're seeing the play out of it. You see what is happening to our little boys, and not only does it affect the young men, but it affects the young women too. I mean, I have kids in school, so I go to the elementary school, and I'm seeing kids want to be identified as animals or identified as opposite gender because you're too macho, too masculine. Like, to me, it's definitely an attack. But what is it for? What are we getting out of it? What are we teaching? What are we proving by allowing these things to transpire and happen?
I'm with Justin. It's an attack because it's not understood. Meaning they don't understand where we're coming from, especially in our community, how we act, how we walk, how we talk, and what our stern is not that we're upset or mad, but this is what it's going to be and this is how it's going to go. So yes, there's an attack because it's misunderstood. Absolutely.
Doc? So I love my co-host. It ain't never gonna just be
yeah.
Doc, we can't hear you. Yeah, but why she's
there it is.
Hear me now?
Okay, yes.
So I definitely think there's an attack. I literally didn't do anything different. I definitely think there's an attack, but I think how it's impacting us more to be revealed, right? I think that we're gonna see things later that we haven't really been able to fully see right now. That's what I think.
Now that's good, Doc. I'm gonna keep it very surface level. The entities that will that have to protect, that have to be hard. I think it's more important. What is Peterson? Dr. Peterson. He's a psychologist, I believe. I can't think of his first name. He's on a lot of things, but he says it's better to be a dangerous man, to be dangerous and have the ability to be dangerous and not have to do it than to need to be dangerous and not have the ability to do it. Yep. So I'm of that camp. The reality is there has to be individuals that defend. There has to be individuals that will pick up a gun, run into the heat, run into the battle, run into the fire, run into the fray. And if you're attacking all the elements that have to be brought into that type of mentality, I think you put your society and your community at a disadvantage, which leans into the elements that Justin just talked about. And I think that's more detrimental and very critical and just it's almost catastrophic to society and our communities. And I think it does impact our families, like having family units. Because if a man says, no, we're not doing that, we're doing like this, he's toxic all of a sudden. And people leave, get divorces. It leads to that. And I think it should be celebrated more that you have a sound, logical-minded man who is willing to be a protector, a provider, a problem solver for a woman, children, his woman, somebody else's children. So, but I think those elements of if you put your foot down and you have certain principles and values, you're going to get tagged and labeled as that. And I think if we don't make a change to that, then we'll see what I the decline of our society and our communities. Do we have any? Let me read the as we wrap up. I'm gonna read the comments. Shah Camille says, "I think machismo personalities are cross-cultural. Cultural, excuse me. Yeah, absolutely. But they function. And if we went at the end of the hour, you know what? I think we may have a part two because there's some deeper questions we could definitely ask and outline more because I think there's some cultural aspects. Is this a Western thing or is this, something on the Eastern side and kind of the contrast and then look at the differences. So I think we may have a part two. What do you think, Doc?
I'm here for it.
Okay. That mean Mika and Justin gonna have to Annie up, get that food, and come on back through. So hopefully your schedules work. But hey, we're at the end of the hour. No, thank you, Mika. Thank you. Because if those that came late didn't know, Mika Man came in, kind of saved the day a little bit, filled and rounded out our panel. Justin, man, thank you, brother. For bringing your wisdom, your perspective to the party. We're here Thursdays, 8:30. I think we're going to have a part two of this. So definitely go out, comment on the Facebook, our Facebook group, Perspective Podcast on Facebook. Go to BS3 Network on all of our social media platforms. Make sure you like, share, add, and definitely comment. Give some feedback on some things. You can find Mika, Three Queen and King. What's the date and time?
You can find us every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on BS3 Network, Roku, Facebook, or YouTube. Thanks. I enjoyed it. It was fun.
Thank you again, Mika. And Justin. Justin, you can find Justin is his show is Elevate. You can find it on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Just before our show, so you can watch him. Go get you something to eat, get something to drink, and then pop on in with us. So we thank everybody. We'll see y'all next week. All righty.